quite literally seconds away from making it 4 wins out of 4. And I suppose the perfect pre-season in terms of results. But no, Callum Chambers comes up. Aston Villa score a 93rd minute equalizer. We throw away a 2-0 lead against Aston Villa. The world's going to collapse. No, it won't collapse. Just in the same way that the world wasn't getting rebuilt in those first 3 wins. Overall, it's a game that Erik Ten Haag, I think, will be happy with. Certainly with the first half. The second half, a completely different game. Steven Gerrard putting on Leon Bailey, exposing our weakness down the left with Lindelof and Shaw, and it got exposed. I'll run through the whole game. But 4 games, 3 wins, and a draw. Lots of positives to take home from this pre-season tour. I really, really think so. And in that first half, I think we saw it again. Great teamwork. Everyone seems to know what they're doing in this system. Certainly in the first half. Honestly, like, the pitch was absolutely abysmal. It's pretty much going to be the caveat to anything I say for this match reaction. It's like you can't prepare for a pitch like that. You'd be pissed off if you turn up on Sunday League and it was like that. In the second half, it was just a mud. It was just mud everywhere. It was hard to play the Ten Hag style of football. Remember, he likes his grass at 15 millimetres. So it was the opposite of what he wants to do, and it won't be what we're getting in the Premier League this season. But both teams had to deal with that, and Aston Villa took advantage of it. But in that first half, with the team that we think we can pretty much guarantee to see, not guarantee all of it, but first game against Brighton, to be very surprised if our front 3 wasn't Martial, Sancho and Rashford, with Bruno behind, Fred in the midfield role, and who's going to play alongside him, we don't know that. But lots of positives in that first half. Good movement from everybody. Something I particularly liked was when there was one moment where Bruno Fernandes won the ball back, and it was Jadon Sancho, Anthony Martial, and Marcus Rashford all just put the afterburners on, and they all ran forward in unison. It's obvious everybody knows what they're doing, especially when we win the ball high up the pitch. In terms of the role of Fred, I think it's become a little bit obvious that Erik Ten Haag, in terms of developing a De Jong role from internally, it's going to be Fred. Now, Fred is not De Jong. Fred will never be De Jong. That's not what I'm insinuating. But in terms of that player who's going to be the deeper midfielder that will receive the ball first from defenders, seems like it's going to be Fred. We may line up in a 4-2-3-1 formation on paper, but when the game starts and the game is on, it's Fred dropping a little bit deeper behind 2 midfielders. And today, those 2 midfielders were Donny van der Beek and Bruno Fernandes. And I've got to be honest, the positivity of Donny van der Beek's cameo in the last game, he didn't do enough today. Donny van der Beek sort of hugged the edge of the opposition box. That's where he's most dangerous, and we've spoken about that quite a lot. But if we were comparing the performances of Bruno inside that role compared to Donny van der Beek, Bruno, I think I've really got to praise Bruno for that first half performance and overall how he's played in the pre-season tour. Somebody who a lot of fans love to criticise last year because of how his performances and his levels dropped. But Bruno, he seems to be playing smarter, making the right decisions, using his aggressiveness and his emotion in the right way, bottling it where need to. And as I say, decision-making was much, much better today from Bruno and has been better overall in the pre-season tour. And when you compare his performance to Donny van der Beek's performance, in terms of how many times he was back there winning the ball, getting involved in the actual build-up play, and yeah, being a pest, Bruno Fernandes was fantastic at that. But Donny van der Beek, the game sort of passed him by. I don't really think that Donny van der Beek has done enough in these pre-season games to keep Christian Eriksen out of the team once Christian Eriksen starts training next week. Donny van der Beek's got an uphill struggle, but it's down to him. Erik Ten Hag said it. It's up to him. But I think I'm not going to come here singing all the positives because there were quite a lot of negatives in that game. And I've got to be completely honest. In the first half, I think you saw the better part of Luke Shaw's game. The overlapping run, the excellent cutback, good cross. And because he knew, it was smart from Shaw. He knew that the Villa defenders were expecting us to go low, so he just dinked it over. Sancho, great goal. Party finish. Sancho, he's cooking on gas. He really, really is. But Luke Shaw, right, that's the positives of his game. The weaknesses of his game got exposed. And they got exposed because he's got Lindelof behind him. And Luke Shaw, he's not as good at tracking back as Tyrell Mallah. See ya. So at half-time, what did Steven Gerrard do? They threw on Leon Bailey, and it was obvious what the tactics was. Matt Cash, get the ball over the top, expose that space in behind. And they did it time and time again. And because Victor Lindelof doesn't have the pace required to cover that space that Shaw might leave behind, it's a double whammy. The two weaknesses of those two players, Shaw and Lindelof, exacerbate each other's. In the same way that's what I thought Lindelof's and Maguire's partnership has always been. but it got exposed and it showed fundamental weaknesses inside that area. So Erik Ten Haag will be looking at that and knowing that and seeing that. But I tell you what, it's exactly why he signed Lisandro Martinez, right? Martinez is going to start in that left centre-back role. He will be able to cover those spaces in behind. If Luke Shaw or Malacia gets caught up the pitch, he'll be able to step up and go into them aggressively and have the ability to recover the space in behind. We can't play with him at the moment. Now, if you're looking at real weaknesses in that second half, I mean, look at that rain. Literally monsoon season. So that's why you can't look into the negatives of the performance, I don't think, too much. But I've got to be honest, De Gea stuck on his line for that goal in the second half. Set-piece weakness. Still there. Still needs work. I don't know how the hell he coached that out. Honestly, I don't know how we get rid of it. I'm not a set-piece coach. But De Gea was kind of stuck to his line. What's that to do with the pitch? You could use that as an excuse. But De Gea's got to be more dominant in that area. And that's ultimately how Aston Villa got their equaliser. In terms of, well, I've really got to mention this negative. I really have to. Wan-Bissaka came on in that second half. And Wan-Bissaka just does not look comfortable. And he hasn't looked, I'm not just talking about this little second half, but what was it, 30 minutes that he played? I'm not looking at just that. Wan-Bissaka's just not comfortable. Hasn't looked comfortable inside this Ten Hag system at any point. And I don't particularly think he will be, right? I'll be very surprised if he can sort of change that, switch it up, and all of a sudden become a far better player. I just don't think that will happen. Maybe I'm wrong on that. But I think for his career, for Manchester United's system and Ten Hag's work, I think it's best, it suits all parties if Wan-Bissaka and we find a move for him this summer. Dalot is so much better inside that role than him. Now, I saw Rob Dawson from ESPN saying this about Alex Telles, saying that he hasn't been given the opportunity. But I tell you what, the only reason that Alex Telles has been playing in, look, because he's played as an emergency left centre-back. He's played it as an emergency defensive midfielder, basically, today. Why is that? Because he's left-footed. I think it's quite obvious. Basically, Erik Ten Hag is using, unfortunately for Alex Telles, he's using Alex Telles to try and mimic how Lisandro Martinez would play. And the idea that you got a left-footed centre-back there. So how would you play alongside somebody who's left-footed inside that role? You make different runs if that player was right-footed. That's pretty much the only reason that Alex Telles has been playing, and he shouldn't be playing. Alex Telles should be sold this summer. Made that abundantly clear as soon as we signed Tyrell Malacia, and kind of before we signed Tyrell Malacia as well. But obviously, the second half, Zidane Iqbal came on, everybody came on, but that pitch really didn't allow ball to be played. It was cutting up like a madness in that second half. Aston Villa were playing a little bit dirty. The intensity of the second half certainly increased for sure, and it went back towards more what I suppose you would expect to see in the Premier League next season. But in terms overall, I don't think Ten Hag's going to come out with that furious. I think he's going to be pretty angry at the fact that Man United have gone there and thrown away a 2-0 lead. That's just something that you should never, if you're a good, solid team in football, you don't do that. But we weren't in that second half. It was until the point where all the team was changed, and obviously everything changes at that point anyway. Gerrard made the changes at half-time, exposed the weakness, and we didn't have a response on the pitch. He kept exposing it, and ultimately that was a great goal by Leon Bailey. But Lindelof shouldn't have allowed him to reach the point where he was there, and he cut inside on his left foot. And Martinez, I would have presumed, would have been able to defend that situation a little bit better. But in terms of what I expected in this pre-season tour, I expected more of what I saw today. I expected good moments, fleeting moments, but then also you kind of get put back into reality with like, oh, what the fuck was that? And I don't think we've really seen that in the first 3 games. We've just seen things getting built and built and built. But it's why you don't get carried away with anything you see in pre-season. And it's why pre-season exists. So shit like that can happen in pre-season. You go, right, that's not going to happen again. Learn from it. Move on. I think what we learned today is that Shaw and Lindelof, that can't happen as a left-hand side partnership. The weaknesses of both players exacerbate each other's. And given how Ten Hag's football will be played and the fact that we will be so proactive, we will go for all the overlaps, that space is always going to be there. Malacia, I think he's played himself into our starting left-back choice, in my opinion. And I think Martinez, well, I know Martinez is going to be our left centre-back. But I don't think those weaknesses that we saw today will exist in the game against Brighton. Certainly not to that level. But overall, happy with it. Fred playing in that role, what do you think about that? Bruno, for me, quietly has been very impressive so far in this pre-season tour. Luke Shaw, I think we saw positives and negatives of his game today, which Ten Hag will definitely take into account. But as I say, overall, 3 wins and a draw from the tour, I think you take that. And ultimately, it didn't really change that much, that goal going in. It's a very similar, it wouldn't have changed the performance we saw in the second half. But it's a shame that we're doing that. And it's a shame that it ends like that, but I'm still happy with it. And I think Ten Hag will be happy with it overall. Let me know what you think about it in the comments below. Pre-season tour is done. There's still more of the pre-season to go. They'll return to Manchester. Next week, we're going to be seeing pictures of Eriksen and Martinez. We're going to see those two in action against Atletico and Rayo Vallecano. I'm looking forward to that. But take it easy, everyone. Let me know what you think.